Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, people of all color, folks of all neurodiversities, welcome to Speaking of the Spectrum, an autism podcast for everyone. Whether you are autistic, you are a parent of someone who is autistic, you are related or friends with someone who is on the autism spectrum, or not related at all and just looking for a couple of guys having a good conversation, looking for a conversational gem, I guarantee you'll get something from this. This is Speaking of the Spectrum. I am your host with the most, the man with the plan from Pakistan, Shahrukh Sultan. I'm a project manager by day. I'm the Autism Society Greater Hudson Region's vice president on some days, and on all days and many nights and many hours of the nights, because my son is nocturnal for the most part.
Especially right now.
Especially right now, an autism dad. And then my co-host, the human energizer bunny, the human Kaizen expert, the finance ninja, the Swiss Army knife of all kinds of skills, anywhere from being an ultra marathon runner to a bestseller book author to, I don't know, you have a black belt or something, you know, all kinds of things, and former Autism Society Greater Hudson Region board president as well. He also dresses up as a duck when we go out for our 5Ks and stuff. It's your average, not so average Joe Templin.
Shahrukh, you know, today is going to be an example of lack of sleep combined with a ton of caffeine, because both Shahrukh and I are running on fumes right now. So this is either going to be an absolute dumpster fire or on fire incredible. I have no clue which.
And top it off, you brought donuts, right?
Of course I did.
Just in case there was a sugar drop around these 25 minutes. But, you know, this is our season finale for season 2. And, you know, when we did season finale for season 1, too, it always brought back that feeling of like, you know, when you're in school and it was the last day of school and like you're done with your finals, right? And you're just to like finish things off like for the year, you know, summer's ahead. Yep. It's kind of like a laid back, relaxed feeling.
Do you want me to sign your yearbook?
Yeah. Do we still have yearbooks anymore? I don't know what do kids do these days for yearbooks? I don't know.
I don't know.
But, you know, looking back, like, you know, I never thought that season 2 would take off the way it did, right? We've had so much fun and we've had such engaging conversations. Like, I want to bring back some of the highlights. Like, it seems like, first of all, like this season went by really fast, Joe. Is it just me?
It really did. And, you know, let's actually rewind on 2 quick things. One, we need to give a big shout out to our sound engineer, the guy who actually makes us look good, Tyler from JG Studios. You know, we could not do this without him. He's actually the mystery man who pulls all the levers to make everything look good. And the other thing is we want to thank our sponsors, because without the finances to pay Tyler to do stuff, we wouldn't be able to do this. So first and foremost, thanks to Pulse MD, who has sponsored us from the beginning. They've got 7 locations, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, all around the southern New York State, and 1 in Florida now.
In Florida,
if you mess yourself up like we do constantly, they'll take care of you. And Pan Dermatology here in Albany, New York. Teddy, thank you for your continued support.
100%. And as you know, we have the sponsors, yes, that keeps the podcast going. But again, we are representing a nonprofit, the Autism Society Greater Hudson Region. We cover 21 counties, and that's a lot of counties to cover. So we're keeping coming ways for you guys to send us some help, send us a lifeline, you know, any kind of assistance and donations. So number 1, head over to our website, asghr.org/podcast. There's a nice blue button at the top that says donate. You know, send us equivalent of a coffee cup payment, whatever. We'll accept it. Nothing is too small. And now, you know, now that we've picked up a good following, Instagram's is allowing us to accept gifts via Instagram. So if you look at any of our reels on Instagram that you like, there'll be a little send gift button at the bottom. You know, send us a little love, and we'll appreciate it. We'll flag you as a thank you, as a response. So yeah.
And actually, I want to bring up a little bit of love for you, because one of the reels that is posted on Instagram, as of last time I checked, had about 2/3 views.
Yeah,
dude, you're just like an absolute rock star.
The current number as of right now is that reel has 670,000 views. Secondly, I don't think I'm the rock star. It's the message that's a rock star. And just to recap for those who are not sure what we're talking about, there was a reel from I think episode 2 when we're sitting here with Jordan Mordiano, which again feels like it was just yesterday, honestly. And I was talking about how Islam says that God's appointed you to take care of an autistic child who's essentially because they're in such a state of self, right? We've been like breaking down the definition of the word autism in different languages. It always keeps coming back to the self, self, self. So if, according to some Muslim scholars, right, there's an individual who's in a way they're so pure that evil doesn't touch them, and then you are appointed as their guardian, that's a huge badge of honor. And when I first read about that on myself, right, aside from this podcast, it shook me to the core. It gave me that, like, I think a friend put it best, is like, it's that shot in the arm of like, you're having those down days and you're like, why is happening to me? I can't get sleep. I have so many things to take care of and my kid needs this and what's his future like? And you're just down, right? You're just down on the ground. And then you hear something like that. It just gives you a boost just to like get up and do it again.
Yeah.
And and I thought it was just me who felt that way, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of folks' responses. I'm going to put on my glasses so you can see how old I actually am. But some of the comments I got in this were like even more like check this one out, right? So this is a user who commented on that reel. Watching this as I sit in front of this therapy clinic, I needed this. Sometimes I get tired, but I'm an advocate for my baby. Never thought of it like this. I always thought this was my karma, a way to slow me down, teach me how to be more patient, slow to anger, more understanding. But I like this perspective. I was appointed and this is my job, and I'm going to show up every day, every single day.
That's beautiful. That's
Beautiful,
awesome.
right? And here's another one. The way this touched my heart last night, I haven't been able to stop thinking about this perspective.
Dude,
Like,
you're amazing.
It's not me. It's the message. Like it's things like that like keeps us speaking of the spectrum, right? Like this whole podcast. We're now in the second season, and I don't think you and I, Joe, would have been doing it again if we didn't feel like it's having a positive impact or anything, right? Like we've talked about it so many times that. And someone actually gave me this piece of feedback too when they watched your episodes. Like you and the both of us, the podcast puts a really positive spin on people who are related to the autism spectrum, whether it's parents or people themselves. Like it's a different ability. There's a superpower. There's there's a lot of things you can motivate yourself with, and I'm just grateful to be doing this.
I am too. And one of the things that I was always taught was to give back. Whether it was with the fraternity, whether with martial arts, having younger brothers and, nieces and nephews. And this is the podcast that I wish I had found 7 or 8 years ago in the early stages of my son's diagnosis, because it would have helped me navigate the dangerous waters. And I probably would have made a few less mistakes.
Yeah, but then mistakes are the best way to learn. Yep. Unfortunately, like that's just what it is. No, it's been terrific. And like I was saying how it just felt like just yesterday we kicked this off. I mean, I look back at some of the other highlights. I mean, a viral reel is amazing. 670,000 views right now, which is pretty great. But it's the build up to that. Like, I mean, our first guest, one of my favorite moments from this season was talking to Jordan, who, he is by profession a race car driver. And his big tip was, hey, slow down as a parent, right? And he summarized it really well. But he said he talked about he heard a motivational speaker that said there's no bad days, there's only bad minutes, right? So if you ever look back at the way you're how many of the 24 hours you spend awake, how many are truly like bad times? It's a matter of minutes, right? And when you reduce a problem to that, maybe that's the computer scientist in me, right? Like computer science programming in me, we're like, to break down a big problem, you got to break it into smaller chunks and address that, right? So there's no bad days, only bad minutes. That's one of my favorite like things I took away from this season.
I really, really enjoyed our conversation with Jordan and his, him talking about Wayne Mez hero with his daughter, with how she was overcome stuff. But I think one of the most important moments for me was when we had Chris Banks, the national CEO of the Autism Society on. It was up on the screen with the big old Max Headroom sort of look and everything. And when he was talking about not just the Autism Cares Act, which has been passed.
Yeah, it was passed
that's
recently,
a beautiful thing. But he was also talking about the Justice Center.
Yeah.
And we had talked in, I think it was season 1, about how more often people on the spectrum have encounters with law enforcement. And because of how they process differently and sometimes communicate differently, and the overloading of the sensory, they can have some really negative effects around it.
Yeah.
And so having the Justice Center be able to help fight for those who can't fight for themselves, I think is something that calls to the white knight in me, or the superhero wannabe. And it's not just because I want to wear tights, to be able to help take care of those who can't really take care of themselves in this space.
Yeah, I think that's a great initiative. And actually, that reminds me of, I'm going to switch our order here a little bit, but an Adam Project tip. So, for those who haven't been following us for 2 seasons now, first of all, go back and watch them, guys. Come on. But Adam Project is stands for Autism Dads and Moms. And, if there's another, if there's a time travel movie by a certain Hollywood actor who also plays Deadpool out there, who can send us a cease and desist
He also
letter.
played Green Lantern, but he doesn't like hearing about that.
Maybe we should talk more about that to get his attention.
Because I think we would definitely get his
I
attention.
think I think there's a whole effort
Ryan
to play.
Reynolds, we are talking about Green Lantern.
So yeah, we're gonna totally steal that movie's name to get his attention. But the Adam Project is Joe's and I's initiative, perhaps slowly but surely, to build a nice conglomerate of like tips from autism parents, right? And what you were talking about earlier is like the Justice Center for folks who can't help themselves on the spectrum. When we had Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara here last, he brought up something that's very helpful that I think I actually tried out, and it actually the state provides, and it's called a disability identification card. New York State provides it. You go to the website. I'll put it in the comments or in the description, but it's actually, ironically, you would expect like something like from the state, like an online thing would be like super complex. I honestly took 2 minutes to fill out. Wow. It's completely free. And what it is it gives you this card that's sent in the mail pretty soon. And it has the emergency contact number, which would be the parent. It has the individual's name, and it has an open field where you can say what that person's unique disability is, right? So I really like that because it's a spectrum. And this card understands it because it's not asking you to select this checkbox or that. It's saying, you tell me what your challenge is and how we can help. Like I put down for my kid, verbal, autistic, nonverbal, needs his iPad, etc. And that comes in the mail. And as Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara said, you can actually be in a TSA line and present that card and say, hey, I'm the individual, I'm the guardian of this person, and please treat him accordingly, right? So I want to share that with everybody. Make sure if you're following along, hit that website. I'll put the URL here in a second, and go get that card. Like it's you would think that for folks like us who've been autism parents for like over a decade now, right? we in past episodes we've talked about OPWDD, we've talked about self-direction budget, and all these things that we're trying to do this paperwork for, and yet there's still things we don't know about, right? Like this disability identification card. Doesn't it blow your mind?
Yeah, and it's amazing how many problems it can prevent just by having that little bit of communication with the first responder or the law enforcement individual or TSA to help prevent that cascade that can completely derail the trip or the day.
Yep, 100%. So I know I went out of order of the way we usually do, and we're at the end of the day we're chaotic neutral people, right? Like that's the best way we can put it. But Joe, I'm gonna punt it to you for one last time for season 2, fact of the day and hero of the day. Who do you got?
All right, so we're gonna go with the fact of the day first.
All right,
and this might be a little depressing, but it should also be a wake-up call and also give us some hope in some ways. If you look, individuals on the spectrum are much more likely to suffer from depression than neuronormal individuals. So, for example, in the general population, only 2% of kids have clinical depression. With
only 2%.
Only 2%. Okay. With our special kids, it's 7%. So 3.5 times as high. And if you look in the adult population, it's 7% in the general population, and it's 28% among the individuals on the spectrum. Now, one of the things that has been shown over and over again to help alleviate the symptoms of depression is
Exercise?
ding, 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 winner.
Wow.
And our individuals on the spectrum have a lot lower exercise levels
Yeah, we talked about it in season
that
one.
we talked about
Yeah.
in season 1. And so getting out and getting a walk, doing stuff with them, bringing them outside, interacting with them, and giving them more contact with individuals that care about them and nature can very much help mitigate that. And so it is a thing that you need to be aware of, that we are people within our community are overrepresented in terms of that issue, but it's also something that can be managed.
Yep. And you mentioned exercise, right? And going out and getting sunlight. But then here we are in the Northeast, which is notorious for snow and long dark days,
Yep.
right? And how do you combat that? So I'll ask you for your advice on that. But one thing that came to mind was we talked a couple episodes about having OPW, well, not OPW, but like your self-direction budget, right? Which you get from the state. And one of the things I'm considering doing is when we get that approved finally, is signing up for some skiing classes for my kid. I've actually heard of a friend whose kid is, I've heard is, needs a lot of assistance physically, being on the autism spectrum and stuff. But he goes to the one of the local ski resorts, and he has, the self-direction provides him with a skiing instructor, and the kid now skis.
Wow.
And that takes care of your like winter blues too, so when it just kind of brings back the thing, like if you're looking for help, right? If you're not sure how to get your kid engaged or get them activities to kind of come out of their shell, like my son is sometimes, shoot us an email, like reach out to the Autism Society Greater Hudson region, that we have that kind of database of like knowledge. We can help you connect with stuff and people and resources and services to, have a better future in life for yourself and your kids.
Yeah. And so what I do in the winter is I go out and I cross country ski or snowshoe. And if you have a child with sensory issues, there's nothing like being out in the calm and quiet
Yeah.
of a snowstorm. And so every individual on the spectrum is a little bit different, but a lot of them find it very comforting to be in that sort of environment.
I feel like snow gets a lot of bad rep. Honestly, like, like living here, like snow is actually a lot of fun to be around.
It's great
like,
when it's coming down. It's great to look at, but, cleaning up it,
I prefer, honestly, I prefer clearing the snow than mowing the lawn. Like maybe this is like a human Kaizen thing, I don't know. But like mowing the lawn, you got to now clean up the leaves and bag everything, and you got to make sure you do it a certain way. You make the lines if you're someone like me, like who wants a clean cut, and then you got to clean up the garbage. But like snow is, you just take the snow plow and you just go and dump the snow on the side and you're done, right? Like, I don't know. Where do you land on like,
I actually
off track here,
love
but,
shoveling snow. It's the Northeast winter workout.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful when you're over 50 because you might have a heart attack and die. A lot of people do that, but is one of the best ways to get your heart rate up and get a bunch of resistance exercise. And there's nothing like coming on in afterwards and sitting there with a nice cup of hot cocoa.
Yeah, I remember when my snowblower broke down and I had no choice but to take the shovel and just go at it. And I have a long driveway, so it was a solid workout, but worth it.
And we went off the rails as usual.
We told you chaotic neutral people. It was still constructive, I think. All right, so let's talk about a real hero. We're no heroes. Let's talk about a real hero. Who's your autism hero of the day?
Okay, so my autism hero of the day is actually somebody who is also my personal hero
All right.
in the autism world. So shout out to an individual who's going to be a guest of ours in season 3.
I love having heroes as a guest.
A little cliffhanger here.
All right.
Dr. Jason Eichenholz.
Oh, Jason.
RPI class in 1993. He was a year ahead of me at RPI. He was a physicist also. He was president of the Optical Society, so he and I did a lot of cool stuff together. He got his PhD, 1998 UCF. But he's got his name on about 85 patents as of last count, and he's a member of the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Okay. And he is a co-founder and the chief technical officer of Luminar Technologies, which creates the lasers for self-driving cars. And the reason why he did that is because his son, Jonathan, is nonverbal autistic and would probably never be able to have the freedom of movement in terms of being able to get himself places, in terms of being able to drive. And so Jason, with a couple of other brilliant individuals, created an entire company that is now publicly traded to be able to give his son and individuals like Jonathan that opportunity long range. Now, that alone would be incredible. But Jason's now on his third act in life, as he likes to call it. And he is the founder of Jonathan's Landing in Florida. Is a not-for-profit. They have 500 residents, so it's live-in facility partially. So they have 500 individuals on the spectrum living there, but also they create jobs and career paths and training for individuals, and 5,000 jobs a year they train people for. So it's inclusive living and career training. And so one of the things that a bunch of our various guests have talked about, and we're also concerned with, is how our kids will hit the cliff and age out and not have support. Jason has created a community to help address that down in Florida.
Yeah. I love hearing about that. You know, when like parents just take it on. Like I pride myself in that, like, you know, I think I talked about it last episode. We were talking to Angelo Santa Barbara too, right? How his path went from like being engineered like a politician because of his son who's autistic. And, you know, my journey with Autism Society and that led to this podcast was running that first 5K like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yep.
And that, you know, one thing led to the other. And my whole sentiment with that is that, like, and I've said this before too, is like when you latch yourself onto a cause that's greater to yourself and there's a need for it, right? And if I call him God, people might call it the universe, Cthulhu monster, whatever deity you believe in, right? That power opens those organic gates for you and things start to happen, right? My journey is very small compared to Jason Eichenholz, right? Where like he just is it's like that on steroids, right? He went up and like invented a self-driving system and an entire community, right? But like that's what I think every autism parent should aspire to be to some degree, right? Yes, on one hand you have the daily battles that we've talked about, right? There's days you feel like you're down and you're out, and then you get a shot in the arm, right? And you get back up and you try harder and you learn patience and stuff from that. So, you know, if there's anything after 2 seasons that I really want people to take away, and this is something I've spoken to friends about, people in the society or community, is that there's so many parents out there, and maybe some of you are listening, just ask for help. There's so much help out there, guys. Like we've talked about the services, OPWDD, self-direction budget, this disability card, Autism Society, you know, transitions from Priya Winston, that organization that helps, you know, kids transition from, you know, aging out, getting off the cliff, but then getting right into college, right? And there's so many things out there. Do not hesitate to ask. I know it's hard. I've been there myself. Like my personal journey started out with the stigma that I talked about in season 1. My journey started out with denial, looking for other ways, blaming other things. But then when I started asking for help, understanding, and it's making a better world for my kid and hopefully others, right? So like if there's anything after 2 seasons I want people to take away is that just ask for help, you know, don't be shy, and it'll get better. It's never easy, but it gets better.
And you can get through the darkest times. You know, even when you're like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make it? You know, Shruk and I reach out to each other sometimes when we're having bad days. Early in my journey, Jason was there to help me out multiple times, and I still reach out to him occasionally. You know, we're here to help others who are coming along in the journey. So find somebody within the community or several somebodies that you can lean on and they can lean on you as need be. And there's an old African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go in a team. And our community, in a lot of ways, is that team to help support each other and grow.
And what do you do with that team, Joe, to build a better future along the way?
You got to be speaking of the spectrum, buddy.
Keep speaking of the spectrum. Guys, it's been so much fun and a real honor and a real joy and very fulfilling on a personal level for Joe and I to bring this all to you. I think we're going to be back for season 3.
Yeah,
I think we got
sure
some
we'll
more.
be back.
I think we'll be back. So until then, guys, stay tuned. You know our channels: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Our website again, asghr.org/podcast. We'll be around. You can email us too in the meantime if you miss us. I'll miss you guys. podcast@asghr.org. And until then, keep speaking of the spectrum. Bye.